Mm-mm.
It's
Mm-mm.
showtime. Dun, 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 dun. Theme song, theme song. Dun.
Can you tell we had long days yesterday?
Whew. Yes. Yes, we did. Long days indeed. Today, this beautiful Sunday, Book Club
Mhm.
Sunday, we
Mhm.
are celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day, which is tomorrow. And our book today is called Never Whistle at Night, an Indigenous dark fiction anthology. I randomly saw it in a bookstore. Sorry, the car horn
It's
is
New
really
York
loud.
outside.
Yeah.
It's being New York.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
We saw it in a bookstore and I saw the title and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I remember hearing that like warning to not whistle at night." And so I grabbed the book because that's all I really needed. I forgot to look up the folklore so that I could get it accurately. I'm
About
gonna do that.
Kushtuka?
No, about whistling at
Oh,
night.
whistling at night. I mean, the general consensus is that if you whistle, you might call something to you or something might whistle back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scary, scary. Hey, Kay. How are you? Good afternoon. This is like the perfect
Wow.
person to
It's
join
a
right now.
So it's something that I always thought of as like Caribbean culture because that's where I heard it, but it's in Asian culture, it's in indigenous cultures. Um, a lot of different cultures say don't whistle at night because you can summon something, something might whistle back, something might follow you home. Um, had me terrified about whistling at all.
Yeah, I
much
bet.
less much less at night. So we chose two stories. We're not covering the entire book because
It would be too long. There's so many good stories. I can't remember how many, and each one is terrifying in its own way. And it might seem that we just cheated and chose the first two, but that's not what happened.
well, it's the first and the third.
The first and the third,
Yeah.
but the second was a close contender. But the third story, because I like chaos, was the first one I read. I was like, Navajos don't wear elk teeth. All right. And then I went back and I read Kushtuka, and I was like,
Kushtuka I found extremely terrifying. Do you want to start with Navajos Don't Wear Elk Teeth?
let's start with Navajos don't wear elk teeth. Actually, should we start off with the scarier of the two?
No,
No? I
no,
feel like maybe start off with a bang because the book starts off with a bang.
it does.
Yeah, it's a no for me. Yeah, AK, we don't.
No, I want to start with
Respect.
Navajos Don't Wear Elk Teeth.
Right. Navajos don't wear elk teeth was the first one that I watched and that I read, and I read it on the train. The title was really interesting to me. I was like, oh, okay. So what do they wear then? Oh boy. Summer beach town. Very small. People have their vacation homes there. People come to visit. It's like I was imagining like Cape Cod, you know,
hmm
one of those
Yeah.
places where people just come on the summer. They like do timeshares with their families. They split the things. I will say real quick about this book that maybe like 2 or 3 pages into the story, I stopped because my mouth had dropped open and I was just staring at the page. And I closed it and I said, and then I texted Tanya. And then I opened it again and I was like, yo, this shit is crazy. But enter our homie, Joey or Joseph, who has inherited his family's beach house and is just chilling. He wakes up one day, he walks outside, and somebody has tied his pride flag that his grandmother made into a knot around the flagpole. I
Haters.
mean, haters gonna hate.
He meets a
Haters
super
gonna hate.
hot guy. He just
Coming
happens
home
to
from the
be
beach.
outside, coming off from the beach, all damp with his shorts clinging to him.
Yeah.
And hot guy is basically like, yeah, we should rinse off before we go inside. They have very little conversation before
This
they
is all
get to
they
it.
said. Like Joey's just rinsing off his feet before he goes back in his house, checking out Hot Guy, and Hot Guy approaches him first, and he's like, "Ooh."
He's like, you're beautiful. Wow.
Which is why, right? Like, right? It's like you just stare. It's like I imagine it like one of those commercials where somebody like the guys or like in reverse, right? The girls are like hosing themselves down at the car wash or something. Except it's a hot man doing the same thing, and he is like, "Ooh, let me hide my half boner," when the other guy has like no
Right.
shame.
He's like, I don't want to flash him a semi.
It's a chubs, and yeah, and hot guy's like, "Come on, blah blah blah." He's like, "Meet me later," and Joey's like, all right, I'll meet you later. What else is there to do on this island? Like, I'm probably the only gay person here. Let's unite.
Well,
I wouldn't call it a date.
yeah, to cut to the chase, he says himself it's not romantic because hot guy basically skull fucks him on the beach.
Yeah.
He's choking for air. It's
He's seeing little stars in the back of his vision.
Yeah, like he's pretty sure he's gonna black out. And
that's what it sounded
thank you
like.
for the sound
there.
effects. Thank you so much for the sound effects.
Hey.
Yeah, it's very violent, and he even wonders like, why was that pleasurable for you?
Yeah, he got like nothing out of it.
Nothing.
I mean, maybe we should have done a content warning. This story is rapey. This story is rapey from the jump.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Like it's like he consents to the sex, but not the roughness.
Yeah. It wasn't like, can I storm the back of your throat?
How do you feel about me almost choking you to death with my meats?
There were no asks here. It was
he just did it because he likes that.
Yeah.
And our narrator, not so much. But the guy's super hot, and I guess he's lonely. He's like, I don't want to spend the whole summer alone.
Bored.
Yeah.
Who knows? Summer flings are always fun. There's a whole song about it in Greece, you know?
Well, he wakes up the next morning to the guy in his house.
That's the part that made me stop. I was like, this motherfucker is in his house.
Yeah, he's in his house.
They didn't go home together, mind you.
They did not go home together.
They did not go home together. He was like,
and you hear clattering in the kitchen.
How did you get in here? Oh, I picked the lock.
Yeah. So he's bad news, I think, from the jump.
The best thing about it is like it's not until later that he was like, this was the first red flag.
Yeah. The guy breaking into your house should have been
the skull fucking should have been the first one.
Another red flag, yeah.
And let's go rinse inside. Because I get like a little bit of flirty banter, but I would still be
it was very forward though.
Very forward. And I I just imagine the way I would react if some guy was like, let me use your hose to rinse off. And I'd be like, okay. But let me come inside. I'm like, oh, no. Then I call my dog, the big Doberman that I imagine that I have in the backyard.
I didn't know you had an imaginary dog.
No, I do now, though. It's like a dire wolf size.
I want an imaginary
dog. Nephew's right around on his back. His name is Hans the Face Ripper.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Well, our friend continues seeing this psycho who broke into his house, and he does all kinds of things that are he's just kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And he's getting away with it all because he's hot. Like, that's it.
Pretty much. He's hot, he's lonely, he's bored, and he figures it's probably just for the summer. And it makes me really wonder about the rest of his life because it's such a high tolerance for like abuse.
The guy has like no redeeming qualities outside of being attractive.
Yeah, and he's really skinny too. No shade to skinny folks, but I'm just like
he describes the color of his legs as fish belly.
Fish belly.
Like that doesn't
he didn't even tan.
But like describing someone as fish belly doesn't sound like you think they're attractive.
Yeah, everything about his descriptions of him are actually pretty gross.
Like he calls him hot,
right?
Yeah, he calls him hot and then uses words to describe him that sound disgusting.
Yeah. Which is what makes me think of also, it's like, was he just like a newcomer to the beach? Like, did he really have somewhere else to stay? Because if his legs are still that color, how long has he been hanging out? Like, even super white gets a little bit of, and I know because of my nephews. I get tan lines and I'm always like, No shit, for real, huh? But yeah, the guy's a douche. He's a douche, and he's got this necklace that's got teeth on it. A tooth.
Hmm. He claims it is an elk tooth.
Because he's got a fetish for natives and indigenous people. He's
Which
like, Joseph's
another
like, go ahead and
flag.
just say it. Say it. Say it. And he was like, I got it from my Navajo boo in New Mexico, which I had to then look up and just make sure that like that was Navajo territory, and it was. Because then I would be like, was he lying about that too?
Yeah.
But he wasn't. And yeah, he's like, yeah, I collect these, blah, blah, blah. I have one from each one. And he brings over his little box in which there are several teeth and underneath it, there's a paper with like, dates and name or dates and locations. And I was just like, I don't know teeth, but I've lost a lot of them and I've had them pulled, and I feel like I'd be able to pick out a human tooth if I saw it. What about you?
I think so. I think
Right?
so. My first thought when he had these teeth, because the second story wasn't supernatural,
Mm,
but the first one was. And so I thought this one might be supernatural as well.
right.
So
Yeah.
when I saw that he had this collection of teeth, I thought we were going to get into blood magic.
Or like a story where he's a hunter or something, and these are
Mhm.
his trophies, which isn't wrong,
I'm
actually.
going to highlight AK's comment. And now I think he's a serial killer. Why are you keeping teeth, bruh? Yeah, it's a little bit weird to be collecting. I mean, some of them are black, some of them are like, you can tell are like, I
But
forgot how
let's
to
talk about
describe
the
them.
black teeth. But yeah, I think I
Yeah, I don't
may
know what animal has obsidian teeth, but I am not an expert on animal teeth.
have.
Yeah, so I thought maybe we were gonna get into some kind of blood magic or body horror here. He
We
says
got
that
into
this
body
guy,
horror.
well, yeah, a little. He says that this guy cares more about the teeth than he does him.
Look at this. He
Because
says Cam. Oh, his name was Cam. Cam basically moved in by Labor Day weekend, although none of his stuff had made it into the house except the fucking tooth collection. That's all
yeah,
he brought with him.
like red flags, bro. Like, why would you let a guy move in with you
And
with
it's not
nothing
even
but a
like the
tooth
dick was that
collection?
good. He was
Yeah,
never like he was fucking me into the mattress and I like saw God. He was just like,
he just like roughly just takes him, and at one point laughs at him as he limps to the bathroom. Like it's so ugh.
I don't know. Maybe it was just like one of the situations where he was afraid of what he was capable of because he didn't really know. But he texts his homeboy. Joey was afraid of Cam because if somebody comes out like that, you're like, okay, I would. It's like, when are you leaving for the summer? When can this be over? Because now you're afraid of him. He doesn't say it outright, but there's like signs that he's like, the guy gives him this heebie-jeebies.
The guy
Terrible.
gives him the heebie-jeebies, but he keeps sleeping with him. He doesn't try to. I mean, granted, the guy knows where he lives now, and
That's what I'm saying.
He knows the guy can get into his house.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I mean, he doesn't have to stay there. He doesn't have to have sex with him.
It feels like no matter what happened, like, you mean that Cam doesn't have to stay there?
No, that Joey, that's
That
not his
Joey could
full-time
just like,
home.
yeah, he could just go back to the city or wherever.
Yeah,
But then
turn
I
on
would
the
be,
house
but
alarms and like go back home.
I
Get
would be
away from this
afraid
guy.
though. I'd be afraid that he'd like find a way to like bypass the alarm system and just like trash my ancestral home.
Mm.
It's terrible. It's such a conundrum. Um, yeah, I'll save that for off. I can't talk about that.
Oh,
But
we
yeah,
are
so
gonna spoil these stories.
yeah. Well,
The short
there's teeth.
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joey starts to get a little concerned. He's like, "Oh my god, this guy has teeth, and he collects them." And WTF? And he sends a picture to his homie.
His friend's
And
like, bro, I'm pretty sure some of those are human.
yeah, he was
And
like, "Yeah,
he's
yeah."
like, no, they're animal teeth. And he's like, he tells him like your white boy hookups are getting weirder or something like that.
Weirder, So it's a fetish both ways.
Yeah. And so his friend says he's going to confer with a dentist friend about those teeth, and he sends the picture to the dentist friend. And while we wait for that to happen, Cam is being even more and more of a dick.
Aggressive.
I'm gonna highlight a
and
comment.
jealous.
Sounds like he needs to go see his tribal root worker and the police. But what I can understand your root worker, but what do you tell the police? This guy's being annoying and creepy. They don't.
And he's got a
What are they
box
gonna
of
do
teeth.
about that? They're not gonna do anything about that.
You know, it's at one point his friend is like, "Who keeps a box of teeth?" He's like, "Well, maybe he just kept his childhood molars or something." He's like, his friend's like, "Child gums are not that big."
Yeah, yeah.
What is really going on here? And excuse me, not only is that, but Cam is like jealous and stalking him on Insta. He posts a picture that Cam took of him, and he's like, "Why are these people liking your post?" Da da da. Like it's gonna
Nobody
be you
can
and me
have
forever.
you but me. Oh, he says to him, like, "Wish I could just tie you to this chair and keep you forever."
And
he
yeah.
says, "Will you think about me when you're dying?"
Not like when I die, but in the present tense, you dying. Yo.
To answer your comment, AK, there's a guy with a box of teeth that broke into my house. FYI, for anyone who doesn't know, I believe this court case was in 2005, where I can't remember all of the details. I think a woman had been being followed or something like that, and she kept going to the police, and they kept saying, like, there's nothing we can do. There's no crime that's actually happened. I think the woman was killed or something like that.
Can I have a question? Was stalking not a crime at that point?
I don't remember if he was actually stalking her, but stalking was a crime. This was like, I think it was 2005. I should have looked it up before. But in any case, the Supreme Court basically decided that the police do not have a duty to protect you. So you can tell them, you can start a paper trail. You can tell them, like, this guy is giving me the creeps. But in this case, Cam's not stalking him. He's just being creepy and weird.
And it's like he's a vampire. You invited him in.
Yeah, you invited him in. Now he's being weird. The police, there's nothing they can do for you.
Let's talk about real quick how after he was like rinsing himself off, he was like in his house eating chips.
Yeah.
He just walked inside and was just like, yo.
Yeah, so he doesn't have a lot of options outside of like going home.
Yeah.
Which is what I think. I mean, I would be worried about the house being vandalized. But I do think I would leave, because I'd be more worried about him breaking in and attacking me.
Yeah.
And
technically it's done.
My life, I think, is more important than whatever is inside the house. Because this guy's a creep.
Joey's head, yeah.
He's a creep. He's very much a creep. So Bestie gets back to him, and oh wait, before that,
yeah, they're in a fight.
The crock on the kitchen counter. Cam doesn't like it. He thinks it's ugly. It's a handmade crock that's like, what?
Sorry. So before we were talking about that, he talks about how Cam keeps like moving some of his stuff like downstairs into the workshop. He was like piles of clothes and boxes, because remember, this was his grandparents' house. Like this is his grandfather worked really hard to get the money to move there because they wanted to retire at the beach, blah 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 blah. But that reminded me of the house where they put their stuff in the basement.
Yeah.
And they were just like, okay, we're just going to leave this there and like erase the parts of your life that matter to you. One of these things being the crock in the kitchen.
So the crock has been in his family for generations, and it doesn't have a lid anymore. It just sits on the counter. It's held countless, ingredients, been touched by countless hands. And it's just something that's been in his family a long time. And Cam thinks it's hideous and pretends like he's going to drop it. He just keeps pretending like he's going to break it. He pretends to trip and fall while he's holding it. He pretends to have butterfingers, tossing it hand to hand. Just really being an asshole. Like, that's not something you would do to somebody you care about.
Nope.
Even to somebody you even just liked a little bit, you wouldn't do that. So it's clear that Cam really has no respect for him. He has no respect for his culture, which does Cam have respect for anybody's culture? He's just a fetish to him.
Yeah.
And so he decides he's gonna go and fuck with Cam's tooth collection so he can see how it fucking feels. Gets the tooth collection and sees that he has, I think it was 3 missed calls, 2 voicemails, and a ton of text messages. The text messages, he doesn't even know which order they came in because they're like all like in caps, angry, not angry, I'm sorry, in caps, agitated. It's like his friend, something has happened. And it turns out those are human teeth. His friend has told him, these are human teeth. You need to get out of there. That guy is trouble. So,
and I love in the book, it's like you can see the text. He's like, he's got the typos. He's like, those are ducking human
those
teeth.
are ducking human teeth. The first whatever, like
the first 2 in the bottom of the pick. Carlton says there's 2nd and 3rd molars, maybe. The 3rd are wisdom teeth. No one has wisdom teeth laying around. This dude is ducking bad news.
I loved that.
This is so accurate.
Yeah. So he's bad news. Our friend Joey, he grabs the box and he runs out of the house to the pier. He figures he knows this place.
Oh no, he walks because he doesn't want to draw attention.
Okay. But he left, I believe he left his phone behind.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Which I was like,
why wouldn't you just, you already are looking at it,
take it for help when you're outside.
Yeah.
What do we
Take
know?
your phone with you. In any case, I mean, I guess I don't know how I'd react to finding out my summer fling has a box of human teeth.
Do you take the teeth or do you take the phone? I feel like I want to say
that
I
would
have
take
the
the
presence
phone.
of the mind to take both.
I think
now we have evidence.
I think I would just take the phone. I don't even know if I would take the teeth. Because like I'd be afraid like he might follow me just for the teeth.
You're right. Hey Tanya, you're on speaker.
Yeah, I'd have you in my AirPods.
Let's see.
Comment.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a movie you just watched a review on. Victims asked why they were being harmed, and the killer says because you allowed it by not having a spine and allowing bad behavior to spiral out of control.
Ooh.
I mean, it just makes me think though, like when you talk about him saying looking back that was a red flag, when you think about all of the things that you let slide early on, those become the things that are the reason you break up. And Nikki knows I am a huge proponent of breaking up.
Yeah.
I always encourage people to break up.
If you want somebody to tell you to stay together or to give it another try, it is not Tanya.
It's not me. It's not me.
She is not. I mean, I'm kind of like that too, but I have a little bit more of a romantic streak.
Yeah, I think I wasn't always like this. I was definitely like team work it out for a long time. And then as I got older, I started being like, what are you fighting for? Yeah. What is it that you're fighting for? Like, this sucks. You know, like I've seen people ignore really bad behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, well, it's just, and then that bad behavior just gets worse because you let it go. And you allowing it tells them that it's okay.
There's this Bilal lyric in Sometimes where he was talking about like the girl, there's something that she does that he thought it was cute in the beginning, but but now you only do it because you know I hate it. You know, and it's like it's like that. And like I reflect on situations that I've been in, and it's just like the stuff that you do let slide, it becomes like it just gets worse and worse. Yeah. I feel like we should have had the domestic abuse hotline up here somewhere.
Oh, I know, right? We could put it in the comments.
Let's do that.
Yeah, get help. And ask yourself what you're fighting for. Because in this case, Cam, why is he keeping Cam around? Why? He's shown time and time again he's not a nice person. He's not a good person. He doesn't even sound like he's a pleasure to be around.
No, he sounds awful.
It's just everything about him, it just seems horrible, except that you just have somebody to have sex with. And it's like, is that really enough? Because like, I'm sure maybe in that tiny neighborhood, you might not be able to find somebody as available, but Grindr exists, you know. What's the other one? Tinder.
Tinder
exists.
Scruff, Hinge.
There's so many.
You know,
And does it have to be in just that little village? Like drive 45 minutes and meet someone there. Anyway, he heads to the pier and Cam follows him and he says, "You saw my phone." He notices a bulge in Cam's sleeve. Before he goes to the pier, we get a flashback of him talking to his grandfather, and his grandfather says he has a tender heart and he wants to prove, like, I'm not tender. And so he tries to have his grandpa teach him the fight, but he's too afraid to swing to hit his grandpa's hand because he doesn't want to hurt him. And his grandpa says, don't worry about hurting people if you're in a fight. Don't get cornered, throw sand in their face, twist their nuts, whatever you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So he has that flashback. And Cam comes and tries to attack him. And so Joey has to fight for his life. And he noticed that Cam had something bulging in his sleeve. It flew out and hit the stones with like a metallic clank. And as he basically beats Cam unconscious,
to his, just like, there's a Bernie I beats him to the white meat.
Beats him to the white meat.
Just blood, so much blood that he didn't know whether it was his or Cam's, which, you know, maybe he should have done a little earlier, but
yeah. And also,
yeah.
I don't know, I immediately worry about bloodborne illness. Like, well, and also infection, because I don't know, like if you punch, one of the problems with punching someone in the face is you can split your knuckles, especially if you're punching them in the mouth.
That's what his grandfather told him.
Yeah, you're not supposed to lead knuckle first. I actually learned that the hard way. I split my knuckle on someone's tooth, and you can get a really bad infection that way because your mouth carries so much bacteria. Yeah, so yeah, you're not supposed to lead with your knuckles. So that when he said he didn't know whose blood was whose, I was like, oh no, bloodborne illness, please go get all of the shots and antibiotic.
Wow.
And he goes to see what it was that fell out of Cam's sleeve. What was it, Nikki?
Needle nose pliers, motherfuckers. Needle nose pliers.
And that's where the story ends. My
dentistry horror just like made me almost just cry reading that. And I just, when you think of like just imagery from the past in dentistry, there's like the hand, the foot pumped like drill, right? There's like somebody with like the thing tied around his head, like just back, and like just, can you imagine having your teeth pulled out by pliers? I can't. It sounds like a very terrible, like, please kill me. I don't need to survive this. Like, I don't want to tell this story one day about like how this is what I went through to get here.
Nah. Yeah, no. Yeah. Please don't pull my teeth out with needle nose pliers. So that story, we didn't get any supernatural, which I was like slightly disappointed because I think I went into this book, not that I didn't like the story, but the two back to back, that I think I went into it expecting more supernatural. And so I was kind of waiting for it, and then it didn't happen. I also didn't read like anything about it, so I didn't know. I just knew it was going to be horror, which this is still horror.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's still horror. But
as you're saying that, I think that when I got to the end, I was just so stunned that I had to sit and think for a second. But I like imagine having the story where like his friend was like, oh my God, you need to do the ritual and bring it to like, you know, a shaman or something. And they do that and they like do a seance, and then all the victims like arise from the teeth.
To be like, help, or if they arose from the teeth and helped him fight.
Yeah, in the sand.
Yeah, that
like,
would have been
really cool.
Yeah, but this wasn't a supernatural story. This was a thriller.
Yeah.
And so I did enjoy it.
No, thank you. No, thank you. Run away. Run away. Oh, wait, author. Who wrote this? We should shout out authors. Conley Lyons. Navajos Don't Wear Elk Teeth by Conley Lyons. 2 thumbs up. Yes. And like some of the things that happen, like we talked about, but you got to read it to believe it. I was very distressed. And the fact that the man has bleach white teeth that flash in the sun.
Well, hopefully he knocked a few of them out.
I hope so.
And it made me wonder about his victims. Like, did he kill them before he took their teeth?
Yeah, because how come nobody has reported him?
Who was he staying with?
Pretty sure it was just like sleeping on his back porch. That's why that like the fact that his he described his legs as fish belly white just made me think like you're not somebody who's like here regularly, you know? And then it didn't seem him like he had expiration date because Joey's talking about Labor Day and it felt like,
Like,
middle
don't
of
you have a
summer.
job to go
No.
to?
Yeah.
That's always my first question is, you don't have a job?
He's a apprentice. Just
let's talk Kushtuka, unless there's something else you want to say about this one.
No, it was scary. I didn't expect the level of violence. I'm here for it. I'm glad he got his in the end.
Yeah, I think I wasn't expecting the extremely rough sex. I don't know what I was expecting. And then I thought it was going to be more about that. Huh?
Did you want it to be tender?
I mean, I didn't want him to be blacking out and like, on his stomach just being torn apart. Like,
Mm-hmm.
And, it just pissed me off that he like went back after the first time.
Yeah. I mean, but it's not even that he went back after the first time.
Well, the
It's that
guy
the man
came
broke
over.
into his house, right? And then they just, yeah. If you fuck
it's
me
like,
until I'm limping and it's not something that I wanted.
Yeah, and it's like he did tell him to leave, but then he was just kind of like, oh well, it'll be lonely here, so I might as well. That's where I'm just like, bro, you fucked up. Come on.
Yeah.
This is why
So,
I can't say
get
that
help,
on YouTube.
Joseph. Get help,
This is why you have to pume people.
Joseph, go get therapy and unpack this.
And unpack why you're willing to put up with all of those horrible things for some company, because it's not even
back,
for love.
No, it's not. This goes back to parents for sure. Yeah. If you want to hear more thoughts about some of these other things that happened, subscribe to our other podcast where we talk about the dirty things.
All right, let's talk Kushtuka. Kushtuka is the opening story.
And way to start with a bang.
That is by Mathilda Zeller.
Oh, man.
Kushtuka had me terrified, and again, has me realizing that I have some kind of body replacement, person replacement horror phobia.
Yeah, when I was reading it again this morning, I was like, oh yeah, Tanya didn't really pick this one. It's like I picked the stories, but I was just like, yeah, sorry if it triggered you.
No, I think is I didn't know this was a phobia until I kept noticing how much I gravitate towards those stories because of how much they scare me. I even quizzed my husband to make sure it was really him, but I was like, in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, they keep the memories.
They do keep the memories.
So how would I know? Or even like changelings.
Stick him in the ground and see if he sprouts.
When you think of like changelings, the idea that your child has been replaced. That was actually a problem with autistic children back in the olden times, because a lot of times you don't notice the autistic traits until they're like around 2. And things that they also sometimes regress around that age. And so people thought that the Fae stole their real child and gave them this changeling child.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so usually they killed them. So, yeah, the whole changeling thing was like a real thing that people worried about back in the day. And now we know it's like, oh no, those poor murdered children were just probably autistic.
Yeah. Well, damn.
Yeah. So, speaking of changelings, Kushtuka.
Yeah. This is like one of our most disturbing streams we've done, I think.
Yeah. We've touched on all kinds of horrible things.
Oh yeah. Spoiler or content warning for violence. Bloody gore and violence. And
Violence and very poor parenting.
yeah, oh Lord, that's the whole topic. So there's this girl,
Her name's Tapita.
Tapisa, which I love, and she's just like, she's hanging out with her mom, cutting fish up, and her mom, like, the first thing that she says is, "You don't have to love him just to make his baby. It might have color eyes, like maybe blue eyes. He'll pay for you to keep quiet about it." And I was like, "Oh shit." Okay. I'm
Horrible.
invested now.
Horrible mothering, like right out the gate.
Yeah, so content warning for slightly rapey vibes. Ugh. Blah, blah, blah. And she says, Mama had always been Machiavellian, but this was next level.
She wants her daughter to get pregnant by this, I guess he's a businessman of some sort.
Yeah.
Who is there in Alaska.
Yeah,
He's from Kansas. And he goes back and forth pretty regularly. His wife is in Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
And he's really into the, quote, native girls. And yeah. And he's gross. She says his breath smells like a rotting caribou carcass.
Mm-hmm. That's been left in the sun for a week.
Yeah. And he talks really loud. He's really obnoxious. And her mother wants her to get pregnant by him just so that they can get silence money.
Yeah.
Which, like, geez, mom, dark.
Yeah, she's like, there's a guy that I love already, and he wants to marry me. And the only obstacle here and in my life in general is money, which is why we're having this conversation in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But read the room. Like, how could this be worth it? And it's not even like, and she wants to tell her mom, you go marry him, but she knows that that's out of the question.
And this guy wants her, her mother tells the guy that she's coming, the daughter, Tapisa, to cook and clean for a party he's having. And her mom is, of course, hoping that Tapisa will sleep with him. Mm-hmm. And Tapisa's like, I'm not doing it.
Sleep
and so
with him.
Yeah. Tapisa's like, I'm not going. Like, I'm not doing this. And she's like, all right, well, I'll send your sister. And her sister's 15 and very compliant. And she knows her sister will just do whatever their mom says.
Yeah.
And so she's like, no, she can't let that happen.
Yep. Danger. Will Robinson. Danger.
Yeah. I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which I think if in that situation, I would have done the same thing.
That reminded me of the Good Luck Girls.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the Good Luck Girls. Just that idea of like, fine, I'll deal with it because I have to protect my little sister.
Mm-hmm. You don't want her to be exposed. And it's not like she's like, oh, they're having like a dinner party. It's a party. And they know that if it's a party, only like white men are not coming with their families to do whatever they're doing in Alaska. Mm-hmm. It's like a bro vacation. Mm-hmm. And I could not think of a more dangerous situation to put a 15-year-old girl in. Mm-hmm. For people who are like about the native girls. Mm-hmm. Ugh, it made me nauseous.
Yeah. And while they're planning this, his name is Hank. Hank's son is also coming into town to go on a hunt with the native boys to make him a man, which really means they do all of the work and he gets to shoot an animal and then claim he hunted.
And post it on his dating profile.
Yeah. Yeah. And that reminded me of House of the Dragon when they go on the hunt with King Viserys and they like capture the stag and like hold it down for him to stab. It's like, yeah, he hunted a stag, except he did no hunting whatsoever.
Yeah, or like Elokar with the Chasm Fiend.
Yeah.
There it is, guys.
Sanderson reference.
40 minutes in. Damn.
Yeah.
We're slacking.
Longer than usual.
Yeah. So while she's distressed about this shit, and like so distracted that she cuts her finger, and her mom sends her out calling her a stupid girl, like, oh my God, don't get blood on the fish. And she goes to her grandma's house where the love of her life is waiting. Like Hannah. So cute. And they're in there, and he's someone who like helps work in the mines, and he's like, yo, there was an attack today. Like these guys at the mines, these white guys got ripped to shreds.
They got disemboweled.
He's like, yeah, entrails all over the place. And they're like, well, what happened? They're like, oh, it was an accident. They say it was a bear or a wolf. And they're like, no, it was Sedna. That's what her grandma
Okay.
said. It's Sedna, and Sedma is like goddess of the underworld. It's a really sad and terrible story, but basically she goes fishing with her dad, and I think that there was like a storm that came up, and he was there. Basically, only one of the people would be able to survive in the boat, so he throws her over, and she clings to the boat, trying to like rescue herself, and he chops off her fingers. Her fingers fall into the oceans. They become whales, seals, and some other sea animal, and maybe otters. Maybe it was whale, seals, and otters. I have to go back and look at that. But yeah, she drowns and becomes queen of the underworld. But they're like, wait a second, it can't be Sedna. This is like totally not her vibes. It's got to be
So
something
Anna
else.
said Sedna is angry. They're coming uninvited and taking what's ours. They don't belong here, in our land, in our beds. She clenched her jaw tight, swallowing hard. But Sedna is gracious enough to give warning. She only tore their guts out. A wolf or a bear would have stayed to eat the guts. They wouldn't be alive in the hospital right now if it weren't for her grace. So that's, all right. So Tapia gets picked up by Hank to go and cook this dinner.
Cook,
And
clean, be the
calls
maid.
her Tappy, which I really hate it when people give you nicknames that you did not ask for. Like, no, my name is not Tappy. It is Tapisa.
I'm the queen of nicknames, but I would not. I generally give them to people that, yeah. But yeah, don't call me Tappy, Mr.
Like, Tappy. You've never heard
Issa.
anybody call me Tappy. Issa would have been way better.
Yeah, Issa. But yeah, so he's driving. He's like, tell me a story. Let me keep my hands on your knees. Then I'm going to look. Look at you. Come on. Just let me. Why is that candle on?
Ghosts. Anyway, he keeps putting his hand on her knee and she keeps moving it and he kind of laughs and he puts it back. So we know what his intentions are.
Gross.
Very gross. He asks her to tell him a native story. So she tells him the story. She tells him the story of Sedna. And he's like, oh, I've heard that one already. Tell me a different one.
And she's like, why do you want to hear ghost stories? It's stupid. And she's worried about saying it because she doesn't want to attract the attention of anything that might be out there. But because it's dark and she's uncomfortable and nervous about all these things, the only stories that can come to mind are scary stories.
Yes. So she tells him the story of a Kushtuka, which is a being that looks just like you or just like whoever person. They look just like you, but it's not you. And they will rip you to shreds.
I was reading about it, and it's depending on where, like, the culture that it's coming from. Sometimes it's a shapeshifter. Sometimes it's an otter. And people have compared it to like Sasquatch or Bigfoot. But in this case, it's a terrible, terrible shapeshifter with like heavy, shaggy fur, and it can turn into you.
Yeah. Hence my phobia, my strong fear of a body replacement. So she tells him the story of the Kushtuka, and of course, one appears in the street that looks exactly like Tapisa, except her grin is so wide that it almost reaches her ears, and her eyes are black, just completely black.
The other thing about Kushtuka is that they're mimics, right? So they can basically what they do is they take like the form of a loved one, or they make their voice sound like a loved one, and they call you to lure you in, and then they attack you and become
Oh my gosh, it reminds me of one of those, I think it was like a 2-sentence horror story, which I'm gonna completely ruin, but essentially it's like the boy is in his bed and he's shivering and crying and he's like, Dad, it's under there, I'm so scared. And then he's like, there's nothing under there, and the dad looks under the bed and he sees the boy, and the boy is shivering and crying. He's like, Dad, it's in my bed. I just got chills. Like, that's so scary to me. Like, how do I know which one's my kid? You have to kill both of them.
Yeah.
You gotta go King Solomon and just murder them both.
If you check out AK's channel, we did a spooky season rights. The Right Set did spooky season rights last year, and Jackie wrote a story based on that 2-sentence horror story. It's really creepy.
Shout out to the Midnight Society.
Shout out to the Midnight Society.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really scary thing to me. So she sees this Kushtuka. It looks just like her, but way scarier. And Hank slams the brake so hard that she hits her forehead on the dash. And he's like, "Oh, some deer you have out here." And she's like incredulous, like, "What the fuck? That was not a deer. You know it
Like,
wasn't
you
a
know it
deer."
was not a deer. You know it was not a deer. You were scared. I was scared. You have a car. You ran over it.
Yeah,
Because
and
I
then
mean, just like you can't believe your eyes. Because if it looked like her to him too,
right.
like there was just it seems
Listen,
impossible.
the way I would have thrown that bitch in
And
reverse.
it says that he screamed.
Hmm.
Says he let out a small scream and floored the gas, ramming straight into her, and then it went over the back of the car.
And then they hear a tap tap tapping on the back window from the bed of the truck.
And he's like, "Girl, stop playing."
He's like, "All right, you spooked me. Enough's enough." And it's just more tap tap tapping.
And she's like,
"Not me. It's not me. Look at my hands. They're right here." Tap tap tap.
"Whew,
They get to the
man."
lodge and she's shaken up and he goes back to being his loud, obnoxious self. She does the cooking and the guys come over and they chill, they drink the champagne and I can't remember. Oh, she sees her grandfather's spear hanging on his wall.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Where did you get that?" And he's basically like, "Oh, my secretary got it for me."
It's a artifact. And
He's
she's
like, "It's
like,
a real deal artifact."
we really use those like
Yeah.
constantly. And then what was that?
That it was a
The
type of
club.
like knife.
No, 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 no. Hold on. Ulu.
And he tells her, "Well, when you use my new stainless steel knives, you'll never want to go back to that."
And she's like, "Okay, whatever. I guess I'll use those, but like I'd rather use like the tools that are here that I've been using forever." So they pop, she cooks a meal, does all the things, like passes around hors d'oeuvres, and they pop bottles, and she gives
Mhm.
out. She's like, "Oh," and they're like,
Yes,
"Oh, come
you
on,
need to
chill.
loosen
Here's
up.
here's a glass," which also made me want to vomit.
Yeah, no, I'm not drinking with you guys.
Absolutely not,
So she goes to the bathroom instead and locks the door.
because she needs a fucking break.
Mhm.
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna show this
That's
comment real
AK's
quick.
fanfic. Yeah.
Small twist. There's a mimic-like being in some woods that will take your form, but they have a finite number of hours to convince one of your loved ones to take back to your
Ooh.
home. Take them back to your home.
Oh, I like that.
Oh my god, my son would
Okay,
fall for
can you
that so
text that to
easily.
me, please? Please
This is why
text
I'm
that.
scared. This is what's so scary about having kids.
But,
Because like my son would fall for it immediately.
yeah,
He wouldn't think like, "Wait, but I just saw my mom inside." He'd just be like, "Hey, mom."
yeah, yeah.
Because little kids
Ooh.
are so gullible and they're so sweet.
Whew.
Do not make it through the apocalypse with children. I'll tell you that.
So you got to just eat them early. I'm kidding.
Nikki lives in a candy house, if you didn't know.
Salt the meat. I do.
So Pieces in
Yeah.
the bathroom.
She's in the bathroom, just like, "Oh my god, how many more hours I got to deal with this." And like it wasn't clear to me like whether or not he was planning on bringing her back or if she had to stay overnight, which,
I wasn't clear on that either because I
yeah,
felt like if he's doing all this drinking, how's he going to bring her back?
exactly. So I would have slept in the bathroom and barricaded it somehow. But, she doesn't need to do that because suddenly she hears screams.
She says,
He's like,
a heavy dragging sound slid along the hall outside the bathroom. I looked down, watching a shadow pass along the crack under the door. The air filled with the thick smell of old fish. The shadow paused. I pressed my lips together, hardly daring to breathe. And then later on, the murmur of laughter
oh,
and
wait, before you
conversation
can
went
read the
silent.
next part, right? She's like, Hank Ferryman's voice broke the silence. To Pisa, I told you to leave the artifacts alone. His voice sounded plaintive, but it didn't. It trembled. Because this bitch was in the bathroom and nobody
Right,
saw her come out.
right,
Hmm.
right. A scream tore through the air, followed by a trampling of feet, breaking of glasses, more screams, and so on and so forth. It sounds like mayhem out there.
Kill, kill, kill.
Someone starts banging on the bathroom door, begging her to
Let
let
me
them in. Yeah, begging her to let them in, which smartly she does not.
Nope.
And yeah, something out there is ripping flesh and eating it from the sounds anyway. When she finally, after an extended silence, comes out of the bathroom, she sees pieces of men everywhere.
And she talks about how she's never seen so much blood. Like she's like hunted, like, you know, carved up animals from hunting, but she's never seen anything like this. Spatters and smears, and yeah, just pieces.
When she came across the eyeball, I was like, oh.
Yeah, she like, you know, when you like go and you put your foot down, you're like, oh, something's down there. Let me look. It was an eyeball.
Yeah.
And like I've unfortunately seen pieces of people after a train accident. And oh yeah, I never told you I saw somebody get hit by a train.
No.
Yeah, long story. Short story. I saw somebody get hit by a train, and then after it passed, people were just kind of like, they're like not really like understanding what happened because there was just like this loud impact. It sounded like a car ran into the building, and like everything shook. And then the train obviously couldn't stop, so it went down the tracks. And then I was living in an attic apartment. I was looking down on the tracks, and I saw this guy. He was kind of fused. He like watched the track because he was looking at something, and I looked too, and it was an arm, you know. And they were just like, as you look, you just saw pieces like splattered over the tracks. And I just remember I threw up into my laundry basket because it was underneath the window. And yeah, I don't even remember if I went back to work that day. I think I didn't.
That's horrific.
Because I was at home for lunch. So spoiled. And
yeah.
And then later they like closed the tracks. And when I came back home, there were police on the police and I guess forensics on the tracks, and they had garbage bags and they were picking up pieces and putting them inside. It's like one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life.
That's horrible.
So yeah, pieces of people, you don't want to see that.
That is not something I have ever encountered. The closest to that, it was in a past life where I was an anesthesia technician and I watched an amputation. But that's more careful and like, although they use a saw.
Past life, I'm just like imagining you like in the Wild West with your apron on,
knocking people out with a club,
pouring whiskey down their throat.
Hit him in the head.
Make him bite the belt. Make him bite the belt.
Pretty much. That was my job. Yeah. That's it. That's gruesome, but not hit by a train gruesome. No. I mean, even though they use a saw, which is something Terrible. I'll never get out of my head.
Yeah, I'm sure.
How brutal surgery is. But yeah, so she comes out and it's like just pieces of men. And she remembers that Hank's keys were in his pocket, but there's just no way.
Where the fuck is his pocket?
Yeah, but there's no way she's looking for it through the sea of body parts. Like AK said, I would just like to point out how none of us batted an eye in a past life. I've done lots of things. I've lived many lives in my years.
Yeah. So she's like, how the fuck am I gonna get home? And then she hears dogs barking. And she's like, ooh, I'm gonna take the sled team.
Shout out to her knowing how to use sled dogs, because I'd just be fucked. I don't know.
Well, it is part of the culture, so I'm sure that she must have learned at some point.
Yeah. So she hops on the sled dogs and she gets the fuck up out of there.
After having to like strap them all in, and they're like, they go from barking just be like,
to whining. So scary. I was so scared for her. And then she starts hearing gunshots. And it's like, who the fuck is shooting? But like after she stops at some point, there's a hand over her mouth, and it's Pana, and he's telling her to be quiet because Hank's son has gone crazy and is killing natives. How did he say it? I think the son called them natives, not Pana, but
yeah, but because he sees the Kushtuka. Real quick, but yeah, well, before that happens, when she's trying to pieces trying to get away, the Kushtuka is running after her, right? It comes after her, and it's like the Terminator. Like she's like on the sled, and the thing just keeps running. Like she goes around some shrubs, it leaps over it, and it's just trying to catch up, and then it grabs her hand, and her nails dig into it, and she's like, she bit her. She bit her and she screamed. And then they're hearing these gunshots, right?
She said, I could feel her breath on the back of my head, smell the blood and fetid flesh.
Blah. Terrible. And
And
I
then she
think
gets
that this
shot.
is the moment where they change, where she switches into her. I feel like that was the moment, the bite. Oh, that's what
So,
he says. Hank, what's the name? Hank's son? That asshole?
yeah.
Buck. His name was Buck.
Mm-hmm.
Buck, Hank's
Oh,
boy.
there it is. I got 1, 2, 3, 3 little Indians, all for me.
Mm-hmm. And he sees the
So he's the one who
Kushtuka,
shot the Kushtuka.
and he's like, "You're an ugly one," and he just keeps like prodding at it with the butt of his rifle, thinking that it's dead. Except that bitch ain't dead. Not at all.
He decides to choke it to death because he thinks it's Tapisa, I'm assuming, because it looks like Tapisa.
Yep.
So he decides to choke it to death. The Kushtuka looks directly at her, and she looks at it. Somehow she was me. To me, that was the moment they switched. Is when they
Really?
locked eyes. Because suddenly, well, not suddenly, she's watching the Kushtuka being strangled and struggling, and Pana's trying to keep her from going, and she yells for him to stop.
Yeah, with
And
the
she
gun.
raises the gun, yeah, and you know,
Wah, wah, wah,
Hank's
wah,
son
wah.
decides to continue being a dick, and the Kushtuka stabs him with the spear.
Her grandfather's spear.
Her grandfather's spear. When did she get the spear?
Well, the Kushtuka was running with it. That's how she bludgeoned and killed everybody else with the ulu and the spear. And she said when she
Oh,
looked
so
back, it was
Tapisa
running.
had
Yeah.
the other spear, because remember
Mhm.
Tapisa grabbed one of the spears off the wall. Okay, thank you for that, because I forgot. Well, she stabs Hank Jr., Buck. She stabs Buck, and suddenly it's Tapisa who's gasping for breath with a spear in her hands and blood running down her fingers. And I had to keep going back over that part because at some point she and the Kushtuka
Have switched places.
switch, and Pana is trying to like calm her. And what absolutely fucked me up,
Real quick before you go to the thing that fucked you up, is that
yeah,
she's talking about there's a Kushtuka, and he was like, doesn't really know whether or not he believes her, but in order to like to pacify her, to get her to calm down, he's like, yeah, no, it was, yeah, I think you're right. It was totally a Kushtuka.
yeah, which somehow he didn't see. Now I have to read this again. I've just listened to it too. I listened to the audiobook too.
Oh, my sister was telling me that she loved the audiobook.
Yeah, I listened to it. I didn't listen to the whole thing, just the
What up,
story.
Carla? Shout out to you.
Yeah, this is what fucked me up. So they're leaving. The Kushtuka is dead. Buck is dead. What's happening? And they're Tapisa and Pana are leaving, and she says about Buck, his freshly dead body smelled good, so good. I was sure the wolves would find him soon. I swallowed the saliva gathering in my mouth.
Not because she was disgusted and wanted to vomit, because she was hungry. Yeah, and then the story ends, and you're just like, I love how all these stories, and it's never like, oh, little things are resolved. It's like, no, shit could still go wrong here. None of it is like, oh no, this is over. It's just like to be continued in some weird way. Like, what happens when she gets back to her village? You know, does she just continue to be her? What happened? Just yeah.
Like, is she just the Kushtuka now?
And then what happened?
Trying to live a normal life. It's like Us.
I don't think I ever saw it all the way through because I got scared.
Oh, you should watch it with me. Come over and watch it with me.
I was gonna watch them the other day, and I realized that maybe I need to watch Us first.
I never watched them, but come over and watch Us with me. You have tomorrow off? I do too.
I'll likely be cleaning
I probably will be too.
since I've had such an active social life this weekend. Speaking of active lives, those are our 2 stories. But if you want to be reaped out even more, join us on Tuesday. We're doing Coraline as part of our next spooky season film festival.
Once again, people being replaced. I don't know how I've done this to myself.
Unpack it.
I think I've created this phobia by watching all of these things.
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah, we've got that. That's this week. Next week is Bram Stoker's Dracula. And then after that, it is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But between now and next Tuesday, well, Tuesday and the following Tuesday, Tanya and I are going to Comic-Con. Boom!
Comic-Con! Finally confirmed. We're going to Comic-Con.
Going to Comic-Con to do a photo essay about Nerds of Color. So that'll be great. Am I going to cosplay? Every single day.
Me
Find
too.
us.
Come and find us. We're friendly. We don't bite. I don't know. You probably know what we look like. If not, you go look at our socials. You'll see what we look like.
Yeah,
and we'll be in disguise, but not that disguised.
Will
DM
we be
us,
cosplaying
whatever.
as Brandon Sanderson characters? Yes, we will.
Why?
Will
yes,
we be cosplaying
indeed.
as Game of Thrones characters? Yes, we will.
Yes, we will. And I did a test run of my costume for Sunday yesterday. Went over well. I went to Boo at the zoo, at the Bronx Zoo. I'll send you a picture.
Yes.
Mommy. Hold on.
Yeah. So it's going to be great. Look out. We're going to post up in our stories. Obviously, I will be there actually working. But I'm really excited. It's my first time.
Yeah, I'm excited to. I always go alone. So I'm excited to like have someone there, even though we're not going to be together the whole time. Just knowing that you're there and I can meet up with you and like, instead of just texting you later, will be really fun, I think.
It's going to be great.
Maybe we can have lunch together. Maybe we'll be at some of the same panels. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. Bleach all day.
We'll definitely do some D&D.
Oh, yeah.
We should coordinate that so we can play together.
Yeah. We'll definitely do that. Word. Well,
that's our show. See you Tuesday. Hopefully.
Watch Coraline. Oh, it's on Tubi.
Yes, it's on Tubi. I believe Tubi has commercials, but whatever, it's free. So
whatever, it's free.
Go watch Coraline on Tubi.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it because I've never seen it before. As we started watching it a little bit the other day, I was like, I've actually never seen this, and I thought I had.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna watch it again, maybe tonight or tomorrow, and then yeah, we can talk about it.
Right.
So until then,
AK, see you shortly.
All right, bye.
Bye.